deceptive, manipulative.
Is also a former social worker and a political campaign activist.
Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
I'm leaving. I'm glad. Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass.
Hello. How are you doing? Welcome back. This is the Eerie Americas. This is Vicky Ayala.
And I'm Kristi Hull.
Like promised in our first episode, we said if any one of us did something cool, we would let you guys know. And I actually left my apartment.
That doesn't sound like much to most of you, but that's a big deal for us.
It's a big deal. So, been bummed out lately. Have a friend texted me, said, hey, I'm going to take you out on a date. And nothing says taking Vicky out on a date like taking me to something super morbid.
I know. And this sounded really cool. She hasn't told me fully what it is, but I was like, let's save it for the podcast. So,
yep. So, I showed up in Williamsburg, which I know we said we don't go there. And I was already like, dude, you're making me go all the way to Williamsburg. But I went all the way to Williamsburg. And in pulls like a old Victorian trolley. It was so super cool. Cute.
Already cool.
You get on there, it's all smoky. There's chandeliers in the little trolley, and there's a woman dressed up all morbid, black veil, black dress. She calls herself Madame Morbid. And it's basically a trolley tour that started in Williamsburg, ended in Williamsburg, but it took you all around Brooklyn, telling you different stories about places that are haunted, the way that some of the places in Brooklyn were way back when, deaths that happened there, old funeral practices. So I learned a bunch of things about Brooklyn I didn't know. Like, for example, there is a big library here by Grand Army Plaza, which is in a part of Brooklyn. If you look it up, there's a lot of war statues there, and there's a big library.
And it's close to our biggest park, which is Prospect Park.
And she said if you do an aerial view above Brooklyn Public Library, it's actually in the shape of the borough of Brooklyn, which I totally didn't know.
I never knew that.
I never knew it.
And that was my library growing up that I would go to. Like, my outing would be going to the library. You had to see my face.
I'm just like, why don't I know any of this stuff about... I didn't know about any of these deaths, any of these hauntings. I didn't know any of it. And then they were talking about old funeral practices, and I didn't know about any of it. I mean, I knew some of it, but it was just very interesting. I learned that the term blow smoke up your ass came from the French, who basically back a long time ago, people were just afraid that instead of the people being dead, they would just be in comas, because a lot of diseases had come to the countries, and they just didn't know if people were dead or not. So they had all these things that they were just trying to see if the people were dead or not. And one of the things that the French decided to do was light a cigarette and put it up the person's butt. And they figured if the person was still alive and just in a coma, that they would wake up. And that's where the term blow smoke up your ass came from.
Hella interesting.
So
I would never know that.
I learned so many things. I learned all about Brooklyn. It was super fun. It was about an hour, even with traffic. And it was funny. There was, corny little jokes, but it was super cute. It was super fun. I had a great time. So it's Madame Morbid's Trolley Tours. It's not an ad, but it was really cool. So I would check it out if you have a chance. They do it twice a day on the weekends. It was awesome. I'm so happy. Thank you, Adi, for taking me out on Saturday. It was a really good time.
That sounds really fun, dude. I would totally be down to go do that, because I like the combination of the morbidity along with the facts, which obviously is our podcast. So right. It's pretty cool.
And it was joking around. So there was a good mix of jokes, and they also had some videos for you to watch on the bus, and it was just different, people telling you about different things about Brooklyn. It was so interesting. Talked about the bridge, because the Brooklyn Bridge over here is haunted. And
yeah, that's a fact.
That's a fact. Mm-hmm. And they tell you stories about that, and they'll tell you about how certain neighborhoods were deemed too haunted to even walk through, and now they're these big affluent neighborhoods over here. It was interesting. Whether you're from Brooklyn or not, you should definitely check it out.
I mean, I think all of New York City is haunted, personally.
It definitely is.
There's so much weird stuff that's happened over time here, and it's such a central location. So many people live here, so many deaths, so many awkward things.
And you just build on top of it. It's not like you're clearing it out.
Oh yeah.
We have too many canals. There's too many bodies of water.
Yeah.
It's just...
There's too much history here for it not to be haunted. I think a lot of the East Coast is the 13 colonies, for sure. You can disco-loving person that OD'd, and they're right next to somebody that died next to George Washington.
Right? That's how things go. You knew somebody who knew Lincoln before you got assassinated.
It's
weird.
It's gotta be a crazy ghost village that we don't see going through New York City every day. So that's pretty cool that they would point out that stuff.
Cool.
That's really,
I'm
really
so
cool.
happy that I went and left my apartment that day.
That's really, really cool, dude. That's awesome. So
anything new with your week?
Happy today was actually, it's Friday the 15th of March, and it was the first warm day. I think it's raining right now, but it felt like the first day of spring, and I woke up and I was instantly itchy, and that's always that's how I know that it's spring, because
Kristi's
like
allergic to
I'm
spring.
I'm in the process of immunotherapy. I have crazy allergies that suddenly developed in the last few years, and I woke up and I'm like, wow, it's warm. I'm itchy, like my back's itching. Like it's definitely spring is in the air, so I'm excited for that, because like even though it's torture for me a lot of the time during the spring, I also know that means summer's coming, and summer, I don't care what anyone says, it is the best time of the year. The coolest things happen here. The funnest part of being in a city is the summer, because you have all these free events. Everyone wants to hang out. The sun is out later, so you can actually get some sun even after work. I'm looking forward to it. So I'm just waiting for this time to come where I could just be like, yes, it's summer, it's here. So
and that's where we differ, because I hate the heat. I'm from South America, and I was born in June, and I hate the heat. I hate being sweaty. I hate the summer. I love the snow. I woke up and it was 40 degrees, and then I left work and it was 66, and I was bitching and complaining about how it's so freaking hot, and Kristi was super excited. She's born in October, loves the summer. I'm born in the summer, love the winter. I don't know what's going on. But it was kind of pleasant today. I'm not even going to lie. It was nice to walk outside with just my sweatshirt and not have like a big bulky coat on.
And don't get me wrong, there are aspects that I appreciate about the winter, and I get what you're saying, that like it's hot and everything, but let's be real. It's 2019. Everywhere you go, there's an air conditioner. You're uncomfortable for maybe 10 minutes of the summer out of the day, unless you're somewhere like outdoors, like an amusement
on the train
park.
Where people smell.
Well, I guess, but I mean, now I feel like every time I go in, because you wear less in the summer on the train, it's blasting cold. Maybe because I'm on the second to last stop, so my trains are always cold. I'm hot for 5-minute increments. It's better than sitting there bundled up in 16 layers. That's just my personal opinion, but everyone differs. That's how it is.
With global warming, it's going to be summer all the time soon, so I should probably just get used to the heat.
Yeah, totally. Deal with it. Be in shorts all year round. Accept it. And meanwhile, this is the first chick that's always like, oh, I would totally move to California.
They have all 4 seasons in one day.
Yeah, okay, sure. All right.
I hate New York summers. Let me put it that way. I hate humidity.
It does get humid.
It gets super humid here. That's another reason I can't go to Florida. It's so humid. If it was just hot and no humidity, I'd probably be okay with it.
You totally. What do you got for us today?
I've got an email from a good friend of mine, and he lives in New York, but he's from Haiti, so he's gone back and forth. One of my favorite people in the whole entire world. He's probably going to kill me because I didn't tell him I was going to talk about him. I just said I was going to tell a story, but he is seriously one of the most awesome people ever. I admire him a lot, and he actually survived the big earthquake in Haiti that year.
In 2012,
and, I remember that day was so scary because I knew he was there. I hadn't spoken to him in days. It took me days to figure out that he was okay. But he's like, seriously, awesome. Survived that.
That's scary.
But the story we have is actually from a time where he was, at that time, living in Haiti, because he has lived back and forth. So here's his email. I was about 9, maybe 10 years old. It was past midnight and I got up to use the bathroom. I always wanted to go out onto the porch at night, but the adults in my family always forbid us from doing so. They never gave us, the kids, any reason why, but they were just quite superstitious. I was curious and decided to open the porch door. I still remember the cool air at night and how good it felt. That feeling disappeared when I looked at our gate and I saw 4 to 5 people dressed in all black climbing over our gate. What also bothered me is the fact that they made absolutely no noise.
What?
Yeah, like ninjas, I guess. Like, no noise. I quickly ran back to my bedroom and laid under the covers. A couple of minutes later, I heard the footsteps running past my window. My throat tightened since this was so surreal to me. I didn't understand how people move so quickly and so quietly. I kept laying under the covers until I didn't hear the footsteps anymore. I was finally able to sleep a couple hours later. The next morning, I told my family what I heard and saw the night before. Everyone stayed quiet for a bit. Then my aunt finally spoke and said that the neighbors were robbed last night. From what I remember, they didn't hear anything either. My aunt gave me a look, and that was the last time I ever went out onto the porch at night. He said that this actually gave him chills recounting that night because he hadn't thought about it in a while. And when he told me about this story, he also said that they got robbed and someone actually got hurt. And I asked him, I was like, do you know, like, did you do something? Maybe you made noise and you didn't realize it to scare them off. He said, I have no idea. Maybe it was just easier to get to their house. No idea why they skipped him. They just happened to skip him. and go to the next house.
Well, that's really fortunate because that would have been a whole other story if he saw them
But
approaching and
that's
it was
just
them.
super creepy, and people moving and not making sound. It's like they're experts. And just listen to people when they say don't go outside at night. They're probably saying it for a reason.
And I share that island. I'm Dominican. The Hispaniola island is still a third world country. It is dangerous. So if your family's telling you, like, hey, stay indoors, they have a reason to, especially if you're visiting a third world country. Like, that's the one thing I'll totally admit. I love DR. I've only seen a little bit of Port-au-Prince. I like it, but it is still a very dangerous area. So I'm glad that he was able to just witness it and not actually have to experience it. So he's fortunate in that aspect for sure. So
that definitely had to be really scary.
That's super.
I think the scariest part is like, okay, you see people moving, but like making no sound. Like something in my head is like people moving and not making a sound. Like I always used to say stuff to my brother because my brother will literally just be right next to you when I was a kid and I just wouldn't hear him coming and I would be like, that's so fucking creepy. Stop doing that.
Just suddenly you turn around and he's there.
And he's just there and I'm like, why don't you make any noise? Like you can hear me coming from a mile away. I like stomp my feet. So you know when I'm coming, and it always like creeps me out when people can be like so silent and just tiptoe up and creep on you.
No,
I can never creep on you. I like walk very loudly.
You either hear me or see me coming. Trust me, I'm like doo, 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 doo. I let everyone know I'm coming. I'm always giving off some kind of sound, so trust me. You'll hear me, or I'm tripping and falling, and you'll hear me cursing. That's
Right,
how you know I'm coming. So
I make a lot of noise. But Kristi, what you got us? It's Kristi's turn to tell a story.
Oh
so
yeah,
I think she got a good one for us because I remember I was sitting at work and she's like, "Dude, I'm getting creeped out writing the details out." So I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm gonna give another graphic disclaimer on this one. This one is pretty hardcore. Even there was times where I was like, "Ooh, gotta walk away and kind of shake this off for a second" because it was pretty creepy. So we're actually gonna head south of where we live, and then we're gonna head further south to Venezuela. I don't know how much people actually do know about Venezuela itself. One of our best friends is Venezuelan, and right now there's a lot of turmoil going on in that country. They're actually experiencing a rolling blackout right now. It looks like the apocalypse.
It's crazy over there.
It's really, really scary right now. We're very and when I look at those kinds of situations, I'm grateful that I live in a country where I don't have rolling blackouts. We experienced that in Dominican Republic, and I think the most was maybe 2 days without light, and that was terrifying. I can't imagine going days and days.
I live in New York.
Weeks.
We had that one blackout one time that was what, like
20
something hours, and we were freaking the fuck out.
Yeah, it was like 22 hours or something.
Imagine that at all.
So there's a lot of turmoil going on there, and it's still a beautiful country. There's a lot of things going on. They just have to politically get it together, and there's a lot of power and issues and politics at play here. But we're going to go back a little bit. This is a further story that takes place before all this turmoil, even though there's always been kind of a tumultuous dynamic there. But this is the story of Dorangel Vargas, which he is also known as El Come Gente, which means the people eater. This is a cannibal story, so if you are somebody that gets kind of queasy with this stuff, fair warning.
You might want to not listen.
Most of us have seen or at least heard of The Silence of the Lamb that began as a novel in 1998 and was later a blockbuster hit in 1991. The novel and film, or both for some, churned people's stomachs with the horrifying character of Hannibal Lecter and has been cinched in cinema history as one of the scariest films ever made. I guess
it makes sense that it's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I love it. I've watched it repeatedly.
I can watch it repeatedly.
I love
that movie.
It's creepy. Every single time I find something else that creeps me out about it. And those are those good movies that you can keep watching. Yeah, it's one of those that
you can keep watching and you'll still get the same feeling.
Yeah.
It never stops being scary.
But I learned something actually doing this research. What many would be surprised to know, including myself, is that the novel's author, Thomas Harris, actually wrote the Hannibal character based on a real person.
Oh.
I did not know this.
I did not know that either.
He did not disclose this until 2013 on the 25th anniversary of the novel.
Good job on that, though.
So he didn't tell anybody. But in the 60s, when he was in his early 20s, Tomas interviewed Alfredo Bali Trevino, a surgeon in Mexico who was convicted of murdering, then chopping up his gay lover. The idea that a person like Hannibal is out there is a truly terrifying notion to anyone.
So that movie was scary without you knowing that it was about a real person?
But knowing that this is based on a real character or a real person is really creepy. I'm going to go a little into this guy. Trevino was only charged with his lover's death. He did consume parts of him, But after serving 20 years in prison, the doctor's sentence was commuted and he was released in 2000.
He was released after killing and eating his lover.
Amazingly, once he was set free, Davino continued his medical practice, providing medical care to the poor until he died in
He
2009.
didn't even lose his license. That's insane.
So he kept in Mexico until 2009. He
Jesus
kept
Christ.
as a doctor. So this is a real person. Hannibal Lecter is based on this because he met this guy. Tomas went down there to interview him because he heard a story about how one of the other inmates who was crazy stabbed one of the guards and he saved the guard's life. So he wanted to meet this man who was charged with killing and eating somebody but
And then
still
save
somebody
life.
else's life.
That's very
So it kind of
strange.
became the character based on Hannibal Lecter.
Which makes me want to watch the movie again because now it's so much creepier knowing it was based on a real
So
person.
if you haven't seen Silence of the Lamb, or
You
if you're
should
not a
definitely see
TV
it.
watcher, read Silence of the Lambs. I don't know if you've read it. It's amazing.
I want to.
It's actually, I rented it from the Brooklyn Library. They will look at it in the past. I was like 16 when I read that. This dude actually ate one guy and everyone went mad. Imagine a true life story of a man who confessed to 10 cannibal acts.
Ooh.
That man is Dorangel Vargas from Venezuela.
There you go.
Yep, that's the story we're going to talk about. He is the first and only recognized serial killer in Venezuela to this day, though I'm uncertain about that because with the turmoil given and there's no FBI-style task force like we have here or like Canada and stuff, there probably are
So he's
more.
just the first recognized one, but probably not the first practice.
But he's the first and the only one that they have ever recognized in Venezuela.
Gotcha.
And to this day, they call him the Hannibal Lecter of the Andes, or El Come Gente, which I said means the people eater. And according to some, he's still doing it to this day. The monster that horrified the Venezuelan people was born on May 14, 1957, named José Dorangel Vargas Gomez in a town called Caño Zancudo in Mérida, Venezuela. Mérida is located in the western Andean region of Venezuela. So they're kind of what we call campesinos, like
the country.
Yeah, country. His parents were poor farmers, and it is believed his crimes began very early in life. He abandoned primary school in the 3rd grade, partly because his family was too poor to continue to send him to school. Most third world countries, you have to pay fees. You have to have money for a uniform. They couldn't afford
Or it might
those
just
kinds
be
of
too
things.
far for them to figure out a way to get you there.
But he abandoned it in the 3rd grade, so his education doesn't span past 3rd grade. He began his adolescence by stealing chickens and was arrested for that because stealing livestock is illegal in every country. Due to his outlandish behavior, the family was convinced that Dorangel was possessed by evil spirits. Mind you, his family was not to be trifled with. Most of his family members were in a guerrilla group known as the Venezuelan Liberation Forces. They controlled the jungle where they lived. It's not clear if Dorangel was a member of this group when he was younger, but you know it's bad when your communist family who wants to revolt against the government thinks something's wrong with you. Just saying.
That's pretty insane.
Yeah, so I looked up this, I Wikipedia'd this. The Armed Forces of National Liberation, also called in Spanish Fuerzas Armadas de Liberación Nacional, was a Venezuelan guerrilla group formed by Communist Party of Venezuela to provoke revolution against the democratically elected governments of Romulo Bentocourt and Raúl Leone, former presidents in the 50s and 60s. So these were communist revolts, but they were like guerrilla style. They would kill people. So you know it's bad when your parents are like, bro, you're crazy.
Right, like when your guerrilla style parents who like want, like you said, overthrow the government, have no problem killing people, everything's political, tell you that you're possessed by evil spirits. You're a little bad shit.
It's got to mean something. Eventually, the family completely removed themselves from Vargas's life, and as far as we know, they've really had no contact with him. By age 15, Dorangel ended up in San Cristobal, one of the main cities in Venezuela, where he began to take drugs and drink very heavily. Soon after, Vargas climbed up a step in the criminal level and became an expert on stealing cattle. So he would steal
Went from chicken to cattle?
Yeah, so he went from goats and cows and stuff like that. So it kind of escalated. He also got caught for that, so it's on his record. Once he was caught, the press found witnesses that recounted a really disturbing rumor. It said that some of the rustlers were disgusted by him because the subject arose that he enjoyed eating raw meat. It is said that he once stole cows, killed one, took out the heart still hot, and ate it whole. This person was disturbed as a teenager. This is something that people had witnessed.
I'm kind of starting to side with that family about him being possessed by evil spirits. Because I was thinking, he stole some chickens. He was sort of a little rebellious. What could possibly make him seem like he's possessed by evil spirits? Yeah, eating a fucking cow heart would probably...
Hot. Like he killed him and just went raw.
That would do it. He was probably still beating for all we know. Jesus Christ.
Pretty disturbing. He ended up living under an expressway bridge called the Autopista Libertador, which translates to Freedom Highway, ironically. Despite its nice-sounding name, it is an extremely dark place at night, frequently used by drunkards, drug addicts, and beggars as shelter. So essentially, these people are considered the unimportant or the degenerates to society. So he kind of ended up stuck there with them. There was a bar near the bridge. Many of the alcoholics would stumble late at night into this bar or fall asleep in that place for shelter. And this is when Vargas would strike. He would beat the victim with a bamboo spear, metal tube, or with rocks. So he was able to take them down pretty simply. And you got to remember,
I guess if you're going after the drunk person, they're not, you're off balance, your equilibrium's off. It's easier. It's a punk way to go, but you basically are going after someone can't.
He's clearly
fight back.
Clearly a coward, and he's he's selecting the group of people that he knows nobody
cares about.
Nobody's
exactly. So really, you're a horrible punk of a person.
Yep. Throughout the 90s, many people that live near the Freedom Highway filed complaints to police that several people's relatives were completely vanishing from the area.
Right.
So this prompted the police to start an investigation. This is 1995 now. Police began to search the area under the bridge after a brother of one of the missing people witnessed that he had been last seen talking to Vargas. During this police search, they found remains of several men and began to search for Vargas that lived in the nearby bushes. So he was literally just like killing people, eating them, and then leaving them in the same exact place where he lived. So it wasn't really hard to track him down. The police arrested him for killing and eating Cruz Baltabar Moreno, who at the time was also destitute and would famously disappear on and off. I couldn't narrow down because a lot of this information I had to find in Spanish outlets. I watched a lot of like YouTube in Spanish, a lot of stuff. So a lot of it was my level of being able to translate, along with the fact that there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of not a lot of reporters covered it, not a lot of people. So I couldn't find out whether he was drinking or had a drug issue. It wasn't really clear, but he would disappear. But the brother and the best friend noticed that he was talking to Vargas last, so they informed the police.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of what happened.
I'm kind of surprised because like you said before, this is a group of people that nobody really cared about. So the fact that the police even even thought about it was kind of surprising.
Well, I think when we say like destitute or people that are like alcoholics and stuff, there are people that still care about those people. They still keep tabs on them, But
I mean, family wise, yeah, but the police.
But police and
they
stuff,
normally don't investigate that stuff.
No, they normally don't care. But I'm sure they probably were up in arms at the fact that they know something was up. Cruz was last seen by his brother and his best friend, like I said, talking to Vargas, close to where they all live, because Cruz was also living under the bridge at the same time. The only thing left of Cruz Moreno was his hands and feet.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The rest was a grand feast that Vargas prepared for himself.
Oh, God.
So he just left this man's hands and feet.
Like, whenever you hear about other people who did any type of acts of cannibalism, they just ate bits and pieces of the person, not the whole fucking person.
This guy literally ate this whole human being. He was sent to the Psychiatric Rehabilitation Center in Pereciba, which is a city, where several tests were performed on him. He was diagnosed with a severe case of paranoid schizophrenia. I think there must be a lot more going on other than paranoid schizophrenia, but I'm no psychologist.
Schizophrenics I don't know a lot of cannibal schizophrenics.
Yeah. I know a lot. I've met schizophrenics before that don't eat people, so I think there's something else going on there. There's got to be something else there. But again, disclaimer: I am not a psychologist.
We don't know about it, but I'm just saying from what we've
from heard. Psych 101 and 102, that's not normal.
I haven't heard that that's like a symptom of being a schizophrenic.
Why this happened, the next thing, why this occurred, is a big question. Is beyond me. But he was released after 2 years.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because he, quote, did not appear to represent a danger to society.
He ate a whole person.
According to the doctors at the center. Big mistake. Huge mistake.
Ate a whole fucking person.
But because he's paranoid schizophrenic, it's not his fault, That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, it was just the paranoia.
That's what it was. He was just paranoid.
He
was paranoid. The rumor that I had found that I had to put, I don't know if this is true, it was just too good not to put into this, it was said that the first thing Vargas did when he got out was to go look for Antonio Lopez, which was the best friend of Cruz Moreno, so he could dine on his flesh. So the first thing he tried to do was go find the best friend.
I don't know this guy personally, but I'm going to say that sounds like something he would do.
So I guess as a retaliation, he wanted to...
Sounds like that rehab totally worked.
Yeah, so one of the first things, says the rumor, was that, to be fair, I don't know, but Says the rumors that he tried to find Antonio Lopez, which is one of the guys that informed the cops about Cruz Moreno. So Vargas, once a free man once again in 1997, where he settled into a city park in Tariba and began building up a sort of rustic shanty house in an abandoned ranch in the park. If you kind of like, if you look, I'll post like the ranch entrance, but it seems to be like a huge national park, and there was a ranch that someone had built abandoned, and I've seen that in a couple like random parks and stuff, just like these old buildings that no one really works or like no one really takes cares or upkeeps. So he kind of made that place his own, but it's not just to survive on. So we'll get into that right now. Within the same year of this release, his terror began all over again. His next victim was actually a friend named Manuel. So he knew this person.
But even his friends weren't safe. Don't eat your friends.
Vargas selected and studied his victims before hunting them, and he focused on men between the ages of 30 and 40 years old.
I feel like that right there is proof that it's not just a paranoid schizophrenia. It's to plan for, like, if you can target a specific demographic of people and follow them and stalk them, then it's probably not paranoid schizophrenia.
I completely agree with that, but you will see his rationalization later on as to...
Oh, there's a rationalization.
But of course there is.
Okay.
But of course there is. His frequency from this point on, once he like got that shack going and like had his own space, escalated from there. It is rumored and said that he may have killed 1 to 2 people per week at this point and ate them. This is 1 to 2 times a week. He was literally just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just snacking on human beings. He was able to suppress with a blow to the head or drunk people that passed out in the park where he lived. And yes, as I said, all of them were in fact men. What almost made me pass out was this following fact. This is when I was like, okay,
if you're super queasy, maybe just cover yours for a second.
The meals, quote unquote, he prepared, he fucking shared with his neighbors, who didn't know what it contained, and they gladly accepted it as a gift.
Because they're hungry and didn't think they were eating a person.
He fed humans to other humans without their consent and their knowledge. Yeah. This happens for 2 years, mind you. So I don't know how many people he fed, how many people he killed. This is 2 years of...
He's killing 1 to 2 people a week and feeding a bunch of people with it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yep. Who knows? On February 12th, 1999, members of the Civil Defense, which I guess over there is kind of like park rangers or something along those lines, got an anonymous call about hands and feet remains being found in the park, and they informed the police.
That's right. What did he do with all the hands and feet?
From there, an investigation was opened. There are several theories at first that the police first had upon examining the crime scene. The first supposition was that the location was a good place for narco traffickers or gangs to get rid of corpses. Makes sense given the Venezuelan turmoil, like they would assume.
But why would you every single time only be finding hands and feet?
Right.
You never found another body part. And what was wrong with the hands and feet? Like, why wouldn't you eat? I don't know. I'm not even going to get into why he didn't eat hands and feet. That's a whole other thing.
Another theory was that it was a satanic sect or like a cult that was getting rid of this.
That would kind of make sense.
So that was kind of the cops' assumption at first. But both were quickly discarded, however, when the investigation took another turn. So there's another turn in this situation. The found bodies were a small part of a long list of missing persons near the same area, which they knew was no coincidence. So when they started get a little bit of idea and research and DNA back, they were like, wait a minute, there's so-and-so, this person was claimed missing, this person was claimed missing.
Oh, that's right, because people did start to report their family members.
Right, because no matter how destitute or drunk or somebody is...
you have someone somewhere.
Right, so they noticed that the same things happening in the same areas. So it was pretty obvious it was a culprit, it was somebody. A house was found in the same exact area, and it was manufactured in that rustic substandard way I mentioned, kind of like, and they found where Vargas was living at the time. When the police entered the home, they found a shit ton of evidence. Didn't even try to hide it. So we'll get into this right now.
I mean, if you did this before and pretty much got away with it because you went to a hospital for 2 years, you'd probably just be bold and brazen about it too. What was the reason for him to hide it?
100%. I mean, it's like when any criminal gets away with murder or anything, they think they're invincible. It's the same kind of concept. That's why all these... Never mind, I'm not going to get into repeat offenders. Yeah, if you can get away with it, you will keep going. And that's how it is with all of these guys. They all admit it. Entering the house, they found a lot of evidence. Clothing, notebooks that weren't belonging to him. And remember, he had a 3rd grade education.
So he definitely didn't have...
So there were like notebooks, clothing... Yeah. personal identifications like licenses,
IDs,
cards,
yeah.
IDs, things of that nature that were clearly not Vargas. This is like them entering the home. This is the first thing they see, but it was nothing compared to what they would find in the kitchen. These poor policemen walk into the kitchen and they find several human remains in containers ready to eat, some flesh cooking in pots, 3 human heads, and several human limbs just hanging around in this kitchen.
Just waiting to be prepared for the next meal.
Oh, there was some cooking in pots currently. So they walked into
him eating, basically.
prepping for whatever amount of time he was prepping. Realized that they had found Venezuela's first documented serial killer. There was no question. As soon as they walked in, they were like, this is a serial killer. These are real people. Venezuela's never experienced this. Aside from the shocking crime that they stumbled upon, what was most shocking was Vargas's cavalier admission of guilt. This fucker had zero qualms about letting them know what was going on. The first words out of his mouth at the station would have sent like a 50-year experienced detective into a tailspin. Like, I even was like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? He stated, quote, men's meat tastes better than women's. Females taste sweet. Men taste better. They taste like barbecue, ham. Women? Nah. Eating them is like eating flowers. So that alone explained why men were the only ones missing and all the remains were male. He doesn't like women. He prefers the taste of men.
It's very rare that I have a jaw drop moment, but my jaw just dropped. I don't even know what to say. Well, first of all, does that mean he like ate a woman to compare what it tastes like to
Again,
men?
as far as we know, it's 1 to 2 a year, but it's very possible that he experimented with this long before. And once again, Venezuela is a third world country. There are probably a ton of murders that this guy is responsible for. I mean, even this week, they just discovered, they positively identified another Bundy victim. That's still being happened in a first world countries, let alone in a third world countries. They have a lot of catching up to do. I'm sure this guy killed.
There's so many disturbing.
But I would bet that he's in the hundreds. I would almost.
Oh, for sure.
I would almost.
He got away with it, and being that the way he ate them, he only had. I mean, he could be doing this. He could have been doing this so much more than they thought he was doing.
100%. This was the first thing out of his mouth. He didn't ask for an attorney. He didn't ask to speak to anyone.
No remorse, nothing. Just, hey, men taste better.
After his arrest as well, very candid about his crimes. Would talk to anybody about it. Had no problem.
He was proud.
Just very candid about absolutely everything this man has done. He became sort of like a public fascination. And the attention he received was emblematic of like the media circus we come to expect here when these types of occurrences happen it became world recognition to an extent. Like, everyone wanted to talk to him. Everybody was fascinated by him. They said that the first time that a journalist had come in, the guards were kind of laughing about it because like it was to them it was kind of a joke because it's like this person's eating somebody and all these people are giving them attention. Like, security guards were actually giggling about it. So
it's insane.
He was very open to speaking with the media, spending hours discussing his crimes with journalists, the press, anybody that would really listen.
Anybody would listen.
When he first began speaking to the press, some of the interviews were truly chilling. He told one reporter about his preferences and described his ideal body type for a choice to a reporter. He stated, quote, I never kill fat men. They have too much fat, too much cholesterol.
Oh, so we had standards.
Mm-hmm.
At least you had standards. Good
He also explained the cooking process, stating, quote, God. You have to wash and spice the meat really good. That way you avoid catching diseases. I make a really good stew with tongues and use the eye to make soup.
You know what's really gross? Like, while you were telling some of the stories, it's probably horrible and people are going to judge me for this, but one of the things I was thinking is I could eat something completely normal and my stomach hurts and like I have a stomach virus. He was eating humans. How did he not get anything or have any type of like gastrointestinal issues eating humans?
I have zero idea. I mean,
well, apparently he made sure there was no diseases.
Yes,
he had standards.
I guess so. Another interview, Vargas explained that he didn't eat victims' feet because they gave him indigestion. So weird you said that.
Oh, okay.
I was literally, you took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say that. But he did compare eating humans to eating fruit. He asked the reporter, have you ever eaten pears? Right. It's the same thing. Eating people is like eating pears.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I go to the supermarket and the pears are right next to the people. What the fuck is wrong with this dude? Jesus. Oh, my God.
It's a mystery. Journalist Carlos Jimenez told the news outlet that in his research he compiled about El Come Gente, though a lot of this is unconfirmed, Vargas told Jimenez that he killed several people and that he sold meat to the butcher shop close to the radius of his actions. That is to say, I would have had humans eat other human flesh.
So he basically like sold it like meat, didn't tell them what it was. Other people would consume
And
it.
another thing too, I thought about that. I said it would make perfect sense because if he's killing all these people, he can't
All of
possibly eat
it.
160,
Right.
150 pounds, however most men are, especially if they're fit and trim, maybe
Right.
150,
It has to
160
be
pounds.
going somewhere. And he's obviously not getting rid of it because they're only finding hands
And
and
he's
feet.
destitute. So how else would he make money? It makes sense to
He was selling the
sell
meat.
meat.
It makes sense.
So if you lived in this area at this time, I'm sorry if you went to the carniceria near there, you probably
You
ate a
ate
human. Sorry, guys. He truly shows no empathy, even for his friend and victim Manuel. This was another quote that really made me cringe. I was like, wow, this is bad. He said, I do not regret anything. I did it because I like human meat and I'm not the only one. Last December, in 1998, I killed my neighbor Manuel. Everyone said he was a good person, so I thought, well, if he's such a good person, he must taste good too. So I killed him. After I did so, I prepared empanadas, filled them with his meat, and I shared them with the people I know, and everyone flattered the flavor of the stuff. Maybe they think the worst about me now, but I did it with the best of intentions, like the church mandates. I shared my bread.
Keep your fucking bread away from me, dude.
And for those who may not know what an empanada is, it's a traditional Spanish pastry. It's baked or fried, and you fill it with either sweet or meat. Preferably not human meat.
Yeah, I make them all the time. Never put human in it.
Yeah, Vicky makes a mean empanada, and I swear that I miss meat in general. If I ever found out you made me eat human flesh, I would never, ever, ever let you cook for me. Just letting you know right now.
Would you still be my friend?
Maybe. I guess that depends on the human.
Right?
I'm sorry, that's terrible.
I'd have standards too.
So he admitted to at least 10 people he had eaten. The police estimate it to be about 40. I would put him in easily 100.
There's no way he only ate 10 people. Absolutely no way.
Well, he got convicted for 10.
Yeah, he got convicted for 10, but he did way more than 10.
They suspect 40.
I think it's more.
I would say he hit the triple digits.
1 to 2? No, he definitely did more.
Yeah. He's in prison, right? No more people eating. Think again!
You would. No, okay.
I knew you were going to say it. Think again! As almost everyone in the world knows, Venezuela has had a tumultuous few decades, and it does not appear to be getting better anytime soon. There was a riot in the prison in San Cristobal in 2016, where Vargas and other inmates are housed. During the riot, a rival gang of 2 men approached Vargas and offered 2 enemies for him to consume. Vargas happily accepted the challenge.
Well, of course he did.
Families of the 2 victims, Anthony Correa and Juan Carlos Herrera, said they died earlier in October toward the end of the month-long disturbance and siege at the overcrowded jail in the western city of San Cristobal. Despite the families being told by someone internally that Vargas did in fact eat them, the government has confirmed 2 deaths but did not confirm the circumstances.
But of course they're not going to. They'd have to admit that they let one of their inmates eat 2 fucking prisoners.
Yep. They also arrested 6 policemen accused of helping the prisoners. So
of course, they didn't do that with no help.
Of course. Pretty much these guards let this man eat 2 prisoners. So, yeah. Once, after being asked what he felt about being freed, he said, quote, I just want to get out and eat people. That's my thing.
Well, at least he's honest.
Weirdly enough, he is technically done serving his time, but as a preventative measure, the government has decided to hold him indefinitely because, as he puts it, he will not stop.
Well, I mean, he did it in prison, so he's obviously not going to stop.
He was quoted saying, I used to eat the thighs, not the nose and ears and hands, because they are too hard. If I saw a drunkard sleeping, I would kill him with my spear, cut off his head, and feel happy. I want to go back there and dig a big hole to bury them. I don't feel ashamed of anything. They have put me in jail for nothing. So good call, Venezuela. I would never ever let this man see the light of day.
That's I don't really know what to say about that.
And that is the story of Dorangel Vargas. He is still alive and apparently active in Venezuela in San Cristobal in prison.
Just thinking about eating people.
So that is the crazy, crazy Venezuelan story. I can't believe that as someone that's obsessed with this kind of stuff, I've never heard of this case until I started doing research. But this one was especially difficult to go through. Like, I'm not even gonna... There are some photos that we're gonna put up on our website theeerieamericas.com, but I'm going to be a little tame because unlike our outlets, a lot of Latin American outlets have very graphic depictions of
Right.
things.
There's really no, like, they don't filter what gets put out there.
Yeah, there's
so
not a lot of regulation on television as much as it is here. So there are some really graphic images out there. I'll try to, keep it on the most tame side possible, but there are some, if you Google this man and you look into it, it's pretty horrendous. Like he's worse than Hannibal Lecter.
No, he's way worse. Hannibal Lecter's tame compared to this guy. And the guy's like not even that old. Like he's younger than my mom. And he's a year younger than mine. So he has quite a bit of time that he's gonna spend in that prison just thinking about eating people. What's crazy is how he's done serving his time. So he got convicted of 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
How is he done serving his time? Like, how is that a life sentence?
I don't understand the Venezuelan prison system at all because, I mean, I'm sorry, if you ate one person in the United States, you would be put away the rest of your life, even if it wasn't a psychiatric hospital.
Even if you didn't eat them, if you killed them, most likely you're getting life. So it's like, why did you kill and eat 10 people by admission and you're technically done serving your time?
So the government fucked up the first time by letting him out after 2 years. So let alone, this could have been preventative. It's totally their fault. Of course it's his fault because you are still a human being responsible for your actions, but this person is clearly not normal. And
right, you're also supposed to know the right from wrong, and he really doesn't. You know right from wrong, but he doesn't think what he's doing is wrong. So it's hard for you to say that he should know. Like, he doesn't think what he's doing is wrong. He just, like he
admits that he loves to eat people. He won't stop.
He said that he's in there for no reason. So
and he feels
absolutely
no remorse. He's never apologized. He likes to talk candidly about it. A lot of the interviews I watched, it was like watching the Cooking Network. It was like watching, a cooking channel. Like, he was just talking about it, like, very casually, like it's not a big deal at all. So this person clearly, there's something wrong with him. He needs to be put in prison. Good call, Venezuela.
Don't let him out ever.
Lock that man up. If I know you have no lights right now, throw that guy in a dark room and don't ever let him see the light of day.
They have no lights right now. He could be eating someone. Like, if they can't keep that shit
they're out of food and water there. Who knows what he's up to right now? That's a horrifying notion.
He's a danger in jail too, because any little thing and he'd probably find an excuse to eat someone. I don't know. That's just insane. On that very creepy, nauseating note,
we'll get into who does that.
Who does that? Who does that? Who does that? Who does that?
So sorry that the one that I'm doing this week just happens to be from our friends in Florida. I swear. I promise you, like, we look up who does that every week. This one was sent to me by a friend. So it's not just me, it's not just Kristi. It's I'm telling you, it's just Florida.
It was a reference. It really was.
And this was sent to me, I think, a day ago, and this was like 2 days ago. So this is like 3 days ago that this happened. And this is the article's from Lad Bible, but it did come from a news article. And this is the headline. Woman accused of shooting boyfriend for snoring too loudly. A U.S. woman has been arrested after allegedly shooting her boyfriend for snoring too loudly. 47-year-old Lori Morin is accused of attempted murder and aggravated battery after her live-in boyfriend was rushed to a hospital on Wednesday. The victim, named by police as Brett Allgood, was airlifted from a mobile home in Cocoa, and police were called. He was in stable condition. Now, to get airlifted anywhere, you have to be pretty seriously injured. So she really tried to kill him for snoring.
Yeah.
The Brevard County Sheriff's Office says that cops initially believed that the shooting was accidental after Morin told them she had been passing the gun to the alleged victim when it went off. However, when officers spoke to the man, he said the pair had a row over the man's loud snoring, which had escalated. He says the pair had been drinking and playing cards before the dispute.
Okay.
Alcohol is involved.
And not just that, too. I was actually going to crack the joke that the only time that Charlie snores is when he's drunk, and it's really loud.
Yeah, Ryan, Ryan's a snorer in general, but when he has any type of alcohol in him, oh my God, it's so much worse.
So much worse. So I can't even imagine the kind of snoring this must have been.
According to an affidavit seen by the Daily Mail, the victim says that as they argued, he walked into the bedroom where Morin followed him, pointed a gun at him, and fired. It reads, he heard a loud boom and woke up lying in a pool of blood with excruciating pain coming from his right armpit area. After the victim spoke to police, Morin was re-interviewed and reportedly changed her story. The affidavit continues, it should be noted that while Miss Morin was in the interview room, she attempted to show emotion by covering her face with her hands and crying, but she never shed a tear the entire time during any of the interviews. A neighbor said, I've talked to her a couple of times and she's always been really nice, and so the news is kind of shocking on it, honestly. To hear that it was over him snoring is kind of shocking. It's kind of crazy. So basically, everybody thinks it's just bizarre. So yeah, she's currently being held in Brevard County Jail without bond.
I would hope so. Don't let her out.
And don't put her with anybody that snores.
Oh man, that's ridiculous. I mean, like, I've never been so sleepy where I want to shoot someone. I've never been with somebody that's been snoring so loudly that I want to shoot them just to get some sleep.
I'd just send you to another room. Like, I've done it to Ryan. I'd be like, dude, sleep on the couch. I can't do
or
this.
hello, roll them over. Like,
Most of the time you hit them and they stop. Like, I mean, Ryan's probably going to find out now, but I used to just, like, kick him a little bit or, like, hit him with my elbow, and he used to kind of stop. So, I mean, there's a lot of things before it escalates to following him into another room and shooting him.
I wonder if it's going to turn into one of these things where, like, it'll turn into this big grandiose thing about, like,
the snoring was the last straw.
That'll be her excuse anyway.
I mean, she didn't even shed a tear. Like, I just think it's hilarious that, like, she tried to cover her face and pretend she was crying. That's like stuff I used to do when I was a kid.
That's crocodile tears right there.
Like, my crocodile, I used to pretend I was crying. I wasn't fucking crying. I didn't give a shit. But, like, dude, just admit what you did and don't pretend to cry.
That's really good. I'm going to be scared to snore in public from here on out, so I'll make sure that I stay awake. I'm alert at all times. Not that I'm not already, but it's going to be that much
Super
more.
Alert. Be super alert.
That is our show. Please feel free to drop us a rating, a review, anything you feel like telling us. Let us know how we're doing.
If you have any interesting stories, anything you've experienced yourself, or even a story that you want to hear covered, you can email us at theearieamericas@gmail.com.
Please feel free to follow us on Instagram.
Tweet us at EerieAmericas.
And feel free to come check us out next week.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.